While Perfect Addiction unfortunately has that unnecessary amount of narrative to explain every little thing or every little feeling that the lead has, setting that aside, its lead actress is able to definitely compensate for whatever you may feel lacks when it comes to the film as a whole. To summarize the film, for a good portion of Sienna's life, she has taken care of somebody. For most of it, it was her little sister Beth, who she has continually busted her ass for. But then when she gets in relationships, then you see the same issue come up with her caring much more for that person and not getting much back in return. One example being Jax, who she dates, she trains, and she even nurses back to health and into fighting shape after he gets into an accident. Yet, as seen with Jax, as seen with Beth, and probably others who we don't see or get named in this movie, she gets betrayed, neglected, and finds herself often in a position where the trajectory that she could be on when it comes to her personal life and career, it is put aside for other people, and she continually just keeps getting herself into this loop. Another example being when it comes to this fighter named Kaden, who is an underground fighter, so not necessarily in the legitimate world that Sienna usually works in. She uses him originally to get back at Jax so that he, and that being Jax, can get his ass whooped publicly and she can get some form of revenge. However, like with Jax, Sienna gets feelings, and there comes a point where you're just wondering, is she ever going to break the cycle, or is this just, or is she just going to keep doing this over and over again until she eventually gets this major wake-up call? So as for why Perfect Addiction is rated R, cursing, most definitely. And of course, there is violence. There's mixed martial arts, there's blood, people getting hit with chairs and other objects, so it's violent. In terms of sexual content, there are sex scenes, but there are creative camera angles, so there isn't really nudity, but you know people are definitely having sex. I mean, there's even a freeway scene in the shower, just to give you an example of what you may see in the film. As for any miscellaneous stuff, I don't think there's smoking, but there's definitely drinking. So when it comes to the first highlight, it's definitely one of the few, if only, fight scenes that Sienna has. And the reason why it's such a high is because, for the most part, we're shown Sienna as a trainer, but Julian, who owns the gym where she trains people at, he knows that she is a fighter, and he even encourages her to really get back to fighting rather than training people. But it's not until you see her in an exhibition match where she really whoops this woman's ass, that's when you realize, oh, she could definitely do more. And the thing about this film is, if you look at Jax's fight or even Kaden's fight, they don't match what Sienna's fight is. Sienna's fight gives you that sort of Atomic Blonde or maybe John Wick or even better Creed type of feeling where it's like you watching her fight somebody feels very real and not as choreographed. So whenever she's putting someone in submission hold or throwing a punch or anything like that, it makes you want to wince a little bit. And it really makes me hope if this film does get a sequel that it'll focus on her career and we get to see the actress in more fights. And speaking of the actress, whose name I'm not saying because I don't want to butcher it, she really does carry this film. Perfect Addiction is a type of film that allows her to show that she pretty much can have chemistry with anybody she has an on-scene situation with. Whether it's the person who's playing her sister, someone who's playing a love interest, anybody that you put her in front of, it's not going to be a case of it's two attractive people interact with each other. It's two people who you could actually imagine being in a relationship and kind of can lose yourself in the characters and thinking that you want to see them, get married, have kids, and have the life together, which makes it so when Jax does what he does or when Kaden does what he does, it gets you more in your feelings and riled up a little bit. Which leads to the last highlight, which is, honestly, when it comes to the camera angles for the sex scenes, they're so creative that it's kind of comical, but also you have to very much respect what they're doing here. In some ways, it almost looks like they want to make the film PG-13, but still a little bit hot and spicy. So they had it so you get to see someone's bag, and arms are put in some position so you don't see a breast or a nipple or anything like that. Or the camera's risen up a little bit so you don't see no one's ass or anything. And It's very creative to the point where it kind of feels ridiculous, but at the same time, I respect it since maybe the actress or maybe the actors don't want to do nudity this early in their careers, or maybe not even early in their careers, but maybe at all. So I feel like what is ultimately delivered is good enough for you to get the point that these people are having sex and are having like real intimacy. And it's not just cute high school kisses and holding hands type of thing, but I still can't get past how they really tried every which way they can to make it clear that yes, they're having sex, but you ain't gonna see a damn thing. So in terms of the on the fence topics, for me, the whole narration throughout the whole movie, even though it kind of tapers off toward the end, was so unnecessary. Us knowing every little thought that's going on in Sienna's head when it comes to how she feels about this person, that person, what's going on, it's like, this film is not that complicated. You don't need to break down nearly every damn scene. Let's let it ride. Allow the actors to perform, and pretty much we'll be able to follow along. We don't need this much hand holding. The next on the fence topic is the Jax drama, and it's mainly because as much as you understand that a good portion of this film is based off of Sienna getting back at Jax for what he does to her, at the same time him coming around so damn often trying to win her back, it makes him less of the villain that is like this formidable opponent for when it comes to Kaden, and it makes him more like this annoying jackass you just want to see get his comeuppance. So in a way, it's good that he's so annoying because it makes you want to hate him more, but at the same time, him being what almost feels like desperate to get back with Sienna almost makes it so that you kind of lose respect for him, and this whole idea that he is formidable, it just gets chopped away as he starts coming off, I don't want to say insecure, but definitely, I don't know what the word is for it, but it just, as you can see, it makes me grimace just even remembering his childish actions. As for the last on the fence topic, it is one of the main issues when it comes to any sports movie for me is how it's shot. If you watch the Sienna fight, it's shot in a way that makes you feel like you're watching an actual fight. But when it comes to the Kaden fights and also some of Jax's fights, especially the ones that are more than just him doing a back elbow or something like that, it's easy to feel like a lot of it's more choreography and camera tricks than you get in an actual fight that has a nice payoff. And again, considering that we got a good fight out of Sienna going against some random girl in Julian's gym compared to Kaden and Jax who had multiple fights, it was confusing for me that you was able to get one fight right, yet almost all the other fights were kind of iffy, if not inconsistent. Overall, when it comes to Perfect Addiction, it makes a perfect starring vehicle for its actress, but I do feel like she needs to have the kind of roles which really tap into what she's capable of, rather than fully relying on her to make it better than it is. For while she does have that sort of Meryl Streep way of making a film much better than what is written on paper, imagine how good she would be if she didn't have to up things and compensate for the script. So when it comes to the ending for Perfect Addiction, Sienna ultimately gets her wish, and despite Jax attacking Kaden at the wedding of Sienna's friend and even cracking one of his ribs, they face off, Kaden defeats Jax. But in retaliation for the defeat and embarrassment, Jax goes for a sucker punch on Kaden, and with Sienna in the ring celebrating with her sort of off and on boyfriend at that point, she gets hit instead and she's knocked out for 3 days. This happening leads to Kaden thinking it's his fault, and kind of correlating what's happening with Sienna to what happened to his mom in terms of his mom died because he was being irresponsible. So with Sienna getting hurt because of him, he kind of takes on that guilt and he essentially abandons her. This leads to Jax seeing an opening since, now officially Sienna's single, but at this point, despite him cheating on her with her little sister Beth and all that drama that came out of that, she lets it all go. She releases Jax from his sins and she moves on. She even decides to maybe be single for a little while and just focus on becoming a fighter instead of just training fighters. And with Julian behind her and him having a legendary career, she's on the right path. But it's made clear as Julian is training her and everything that she will not be just having him. Beth has also been forgiven and welcomed back into the fold. And despite the abandonment that happened earlier, Caden returns and he seemingly is going to be in Sienna's corner too, but it's not very much clear whether or not he's going to be allowed back into her heart just yet. Now, as for sequel or prequel potential, considering we only got to see Sienna in one exhibition match, a sequel could easily feature the usual sports movie come up for her. Maybe in the vein of Creed in terms of her really making a name for herself while trying to balance a relationship, or hopefully maybe her just finally getting to focus just on herself and really make a name for herself, collecting wins and eventually get into a title.